Basketball fans, welcome into another off day for the Toronto Raptors. Akil, Sherm Hamilton, and Paul Jones coming to you from outside Scotiabank Arena. We've been switching it up a lot recently, but we're keeping with the format, still talking Raptors brand basketball. Nick Nurse, of course, talked to the media yesterday, and he set the expectations straight, gentlemen. He said, don't read too much into the stats because you're not going to see a lot of these lineups. You're not going to see a lot of these players playing in these positions. But let's start with something that the Toronto Raptors know that will be happening all year long, and that is OG Anunoby defense. Coming into the year, the pecking order, according to Vegas, was they had Giannis Antetokounmpo and, of course, Rudy Gobert as the top contenders for that Defensive Player of the Year award. But our guy OG has been impressive, to say the least. Think he's got a shot, Jonsey? Where are you going with the over-unders here?
I think he does. And I'll say this. First of all, you need to gain some momentum, some notoriety around the defense. You need people to kind of talk it up. That goes without saying. You need to be a good defensive player. I think we've seen that from OG. He can guard all 5 positions. He's strong. He rebounds. He does all those things that are the prerequisites to win that award. The other part of it, though, is your team has to play well. And there's been gathering momentum for perimeter players to win this award. It used to be a big man award. You know, you look back at the history of the award, guys that protect the lane. I mean, even as recent as Rudy Gobert winning it on multiple occasions. But I think OG has some momentum there.
The time is right. I mean, you think about the first time since a guard won the award since 1996, which was Gary Payton, was last year with Marcus Smart.
And what was the other part of that? We always talk about it, team success. The Boston Celtics last year were the #1 team in defensive rating at the end of the regular season in the NBA. So I think OG's got a shot, but he's going to, like everything else, need some help from his team.
You put any money on OG down in Vegas, sir?
Absolutely. He said it. That's the first step. Put it out there.
Yep, he did do
Get
that.
it in people's minds, plant the seed. And now you got to back it up. And he's done a phenomenal job. And it's not just the smoke and mirrors, the steals, because that sometimes can be a false leading indicator of a good defender. But when you watch OG, you see the physicality, you see the ability, as Jonsey said, to switch all positions, the toughness. And, you know, the whole art of defense got changed. It used to be schematic.
Yep.
They're funneling people to one direction where all the help is. OG will guard you straight up and keep you in front of him. And that's rare because these guys are so good in this league. So OG is checking all the boxes when it comes to an elite defender. Now he's just got to continue to back it up with his play.
Yeah, especially without a traditional shot blocker at the rim. He's taking on a lot of responsibility. Let's talk about something else, responsibility of getting into a top 4 spot, which is what kind of the challenges for this Toronto Raptors group fell just short. You want to be playing at home in the playoffs, but right now, if you look at the Eastern Conference, very little space separates the team. So I'm asking Sherman, I'll start with you. Do you see the Eastern Conference separating it out, or is it going to be this close throughout the year? Because we're expecting, a couple of teams like Chicago and those guys to rise up a little bit, but teams are fighting to get at least 2 or 3 games up on their next guy.
Yeah, and I mean, when you look at the standings right now in the Eastern Conference, there's only 5 games that separate 1 through 10.
Yep.
So obviously it's going to be, and we talked about this in the preseason, it's going to be a knock it down, drag out, I think, regular season in Eastern Conference, and that's going to be an indicator of how tough the Eastern Conference is. I will say this, with approximately 20 games played, I don't know if there's a concern right now about where you're sitting in the standings, especially for a team like the Raptors, who have endured some major injuries and they're still going through it. This is not a clear indicator of how good this team will be. And I think ultimately, the top of the Eastern Conference is not going to run away from the middle of the Eastern Conference. There might be some separation when you get to 6, 7, and 8 and onward, but it's not going to be a runaway, I don't think. So you're always going to be in it. A 2-3 game winning streak can really change your situation, your position. And I think right now, if you're the Raptors sitting 1 game above 500, you're in a good spot. You can just continue to try and get healthy, continue to formulate and build your game plan, and when everybody's back, you'll be able to make a push.
Around this time of the year, you kind of get a sense of what a team is, but have we gotten that with this Eastern Conference?
No, Akil, and we talked about it in the preseason. We'll talk about it all year. As one Eastern Conference coach said, the Eastern Conference playoff race will be like the mafia. Even when you think you're out of it, you're not. you're still in it. And as Sherm said, it takes a 2-3 game winning streak. I mean, and you look at some of the teams that people discounted at the beginning of the year or didn't think they would have the wherewithal to be in that kind of race. Look at the Indiana Pacers right now. Young team, confident, good coach, I'm sure they're saying, well, why not us, right? The same way people discounted the Raptors last year, didn't even have them in the play-in, and they finished in one of those coveted spots to have a 7-game series in the first round. So I think you're going to see a lot of this over the course of the year in the Eastern Conference. And I really think injuries and lineups are going to play a major part as to who moves, who doesn't move. You get hurt at the wrong time, or you get healthy at the right time, and your fortunes can change in a heartbeat.
Mike Brown's Sacramento Kings are surprising the league, not just with their antics, but with their play. But let's talk about it. They're lighting the beam. That's the new thing out in Sacramento. Are you liking it? And of course, my question is, do you think they continue to get opportunities to light the beam, or does the momentum kind of slow for this Kings team?
Well, right now they need to light the beam as much as they can, because I think the water's going to find its level, and I don't know how good Sacramento will be moving forward for the rest of the season. As far as this lighting the beam thing, I'm not the gimmicky person. I'm not into that kind of thing. But whatever keeps the fans engaged, whatever keeps the players, the team, the organization,
need to keep those fans engaged.
100%. Because I think what we're seeing this season especially is some teams that we didn't think were going to be good have jumped out early.
Yep.
And they've been very good to start. It's about the endurance, the ability to maintain that. And I don't know if Sacramento's going to be able to maintain that. But to your point, yeah, light the beam as much as you can right now, because you're winning. And when you're winning, it's important to raise that flag and say, we're doing a good job. If I'm another team in the league, I don't know if I adapt this. I don't know if I really care about it, to be honest with you. But organizationally, I can understand why you would put something in place to kind of emphasize the energy and the hype around your team. It's a good time for Sacramento. Now remember, back in the day, that used to be one of the toughest home courts to play on, with the cowbells.
Arco Arena.
Yeah, they're trying to get that energy back, and
Yeah.
hopefully they're hoping this team can start to win more games to produce that energy.
Yeah, a couple of things they did in the offseason, of course, was ship out Tyrese Halliburton. They brought in Red Velvet, Kevin Huerter, and it got Sabonis in the Halliburton trade. And then they added the beam. First off, your thoughts on the beam and your thoughts on this Kings team.
Hey, look, this Kings fan base has been loyal. I mean, they've endured some tough times. They have the longest current streak in the NBA without having appeared in the playoffs.
16 years.
16 years.
Longer than Chris Paul's been in the league.
They're trying to break that streak, right? So give them the beam. Engage the fan base, as Sherm said. That's fine. Whatever keeps the momentum going. I mean, maybe the players even say, hey, man, we got to keep that winning, keep the beam being lit. That's all well and good. But they're one of those teams right now, as I talked about in the last segment, like the Indiana Pacers. I'm sure a lot of people or a lot of the pundits didn't look at them and say, oh, watch out for the Kings. Now they're a team that got a new system, new coaching staff, new attitude, a little bit of success, roll that all together, and it spells confidence. And Akil, we know, Sherm, we know, once you get going in this league or anywhere and you start to feel confident about what you're doing, and yes, this can be accomplished, I can meet these goals, sometimes it's tough to be deterred. So let's give the Kings credit for that. As for the beam, closest thing we got here in Toronto is the weather beacon on the Canada Life building, right?
Okay.
I look at it and I can tell whether the temperature, because of the lights, is going up, whether it's going down, and if it's going to rain or snow. But I don't know if I'm adopting that, as I said, as Sherm said, especially if you're a team that has had success. I know what the top of the mountain looks like. Let's wait till I get back up there to plant the flag.
I say we'd like to see CN Tower every time the Raptors get a win. I don't know. That's what I'm going to ask for the team to do.
Hold on, though. What happens when your team's, like, you do this and the team starts losing?
All I know is when the weather changes, my joints tell me. I don't need a beacon.
Destroy the beam if you start losing. Anyways, right now we're going to hand it over to head coach Nick Nurse.
We were talking shooting yesterday before Gary got hurt. He was on a real cold streak. Started the season great. You guys have any discussions as he's been getting back here about how to get back to his best game?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that, he's had a kind of a series of things that have bothered him here recently, and I think some of them were bothering him that he was playing through, and I would imagine those affected him, his shooting percentage as well. So, I mean, I think we know he's a good shooter and we know he can score, and just got to get him feeling good physically out there, and I think he's always got the confidence to make shots.
You made it. Deflections are down a fair chunk from last season.
Yep. Disappointing.
Yeah.
It's disappointing. We'd like to get him a lot more aggressive on defense this year. I would say that's been Well, I don't know what the word is. It's been a little bit of a negative, right? Because he's capable of really getting after the ball and getting his hands on the ball a lot, and that's what we want him to do. You know, we're going to get him his shots and get him his points, but we want him to be a disruptor. He kind of fits us if he does that. And if he doesn't fit us, right? So we need to get him back. And again, I think some of that is he just hasn't felt all that great physically for a lot of games this year. So hopefully he's getting there where he's going to feel good here starting tomorrow.
Yeah, I mean, it happens throughout the course of the basketball season. We definitely didn't think it would be like this, but, you know, it is what it is, and, you know, next man up mentality. Next man got to step up, and I think we've done a very good job of just having the next guy come off, step up. For us, you know, we have a team of individuals that can go out there and help us win a basketball game on any given night. So we're strongly and you know, deeply confident in everybody who's on the roster and how they can help us.
Where are you going to miss the most?
Just his tenacity on the defensive side of the basketball, and then, you know, his imposing his will on the offensive side. You know, Scott is a guy that puts a lot of pressure on a lot of teams just because of his abilities, and, you know, there's definitely going to be missed. You know, but, you know, we have to figure out a way to fill that void. You know, whether it's you know Jeff coming off and giving us something, Malachi. You know, other guys just giving us some extra push, extra boost. You know, in some of the categories that we need them to fill the needs.
Yeah, well, that's two, so get up threes, get behind the line, and finish strong at the rim.
Yeah, there was a stretch last year, I think, for most of the year, at the top. I think at one point you led the league in deflections, but you're top 5, I think, in the season. Definitely. And this year, you know, they're off. Last year was 3.5, this year 2.5. It's only one number, but do you feel like you could change your approach a little bit defensively and try to be a little more conservative, or is there something you got to pick up and wrap up a little bit?
I just go out there, play hard, best I can. You know, I try to go out there, help my teammates, try to do anything I can to help the basketball team win.
You guys are playing against Brooklyn tomorrow, and Thad was just saying how, you know, Kevin Durant, paraphrasing a little bit, he just keeps getting better, his game keeps getting better. Sure. As someone that is like just a fan of the game,
sure.
What's it like kind of playing and watching against KD?
It's great playing against him. It's always fun. You know, obviously as a little kid, being in middle school and high school, I've seen this whole journey. I've seen, you know, everything throughout his career, what he's went through, he's won, teams he's been on. You know, so generational talent, generational player. Whenever you get the opportunity to, you know, go out there and play against anybody, showcase your work, you know, showcase what you can do.
Raptors 9:05 today as the 9:05 took on the Long Island Nets, the affiliate of tomorrow's opponent, the Brooklyn Nets, at the Paramount Fine Food Center. And the game went to overtime, gentlemen, and it looked different from an NBA overtime because in the G League, which is the petri dish for the NBA, they're playing the ELAM Ending, which is 1st to 7, clocks off. Do we like it? Should the NBA use it, Sherm?
Your first question, I like it.
Okay.
I like it for the G League.
Okay.
I think it's fun. It takes us all back to playing, pickup ball. You know, 1st to 7. The only thing is you got to win by 2 on the blacktop. But I like that idea of making it feel like it's organic, and that's where a lot of us played the game. And to try it in the G League, I think it's great. I mean, they did something like that with the All-Star game.
Yes.
But adapting it to change the format of the NBA, that's going to take some convincing. I mean, we want to see the best players. We want to see the format that is used to decide the first 3 quarters, kind of finish the game. But there is some intrigue from my perspective to see if that was implemented, how the game would change from a tactical perspective. Now you probably have your lead guys. They got the ball every time, and they're going downhill. I just think it's one of those things that the NBA should explore, and the G League is a great, great fertile ground to test that stuff.
I kind of like it in a sense, to your questions. I do like it because I like games like volleyball, like baseball, where you have to finish the game. You can't let the clock say, okay, that's enough, you've won the game. You need to finish it. And if you're on the other side, there's always hope that you can come back. So that, from that perspective, I really, really like it. I'm not sure, though, about the NBA in terms of, as Sherm said, with the traditionalists convincing them. I don't like the fact that in the ELAM Ending, and I saw it in the CEBL too, our Canadian cousins, that the game can end on a free throw.
Yeah.
I think if you have
anticlimactic.
if you have the target number and it's 105 and point number 105 comes on a free throw, no, then it goes to the next point, 106. So you have to finish the game by making a play.
A field goal.
A field goal. And some people will say, well, you've made the play and you got fouled. I get that, but that's just my own feeling. I like it. Not sure if I'm ready for it in the NBA, although we've had lots of changes, so try it out in the G League.
Well, unfortunately for the 905, their first taste of the ELAM ending was not a W. It was actually a loss to the Long Island Nets. And to break down the experience there, I hand you over to the 905 broadcast crew of Matt Cullen and Warren Ward.
All right, thanks very much, Akil. The Raptors 905 and the Long Island Nets, Warren, going the distance, a 132-128 win for Long Island. A terrific outing, though, for a couple of Raptors 905. Let's start with Jeff Doughton Jr., who was back with the 905 from a stint with the Raptors.
And he continued to show why he deserves to be back and forth, right? I mean, he's up there and he's down here, but he is showing more and more. Not only does he making clutch baskets, important baskets, but he's a really good playmaker. He's quite the knack for assists, as we can see here. Led the team tonight with 10 assists. Him and Saban Lee, terrific in that department. He's also shooting the ball much better. So as long as he continues to improve his jump shooting, I think time and time again he'll show his worth and why he belongs in the conversation with the Raptors and with the 905.
Well, this game, as I mentioned, went the distance as well. An NBA champion last year with the Golden State Warriors, Chris Chiozza, this year playing with the Nets, and he put up his first career professional triple-double and was instrumental with 19 assists, also a career high.
Tip your hat, man. That's really all you can do. Tip your hat. Like I said, man, when you see real professional basketball players play, they usually have a poise about them, and Chris Chiozza plays with that. He didn't look stressed, even though he wasn't making shots. What did he do, Matt? He made timely buckets. Not only was he doing that the entire game, but he just controlled the pace of the game. And as soon as he got himself inside the paint, he just looking for his teammates, and he had a career high of 19 assists, not only to go with the points, but the smallest guy on the floor got 10 rebounds. So I think he just wanted it more, and Long Island deserved to win this game down the stretch. I don't think they played better as a team than the 905, but they definitely deserved the win.
Up next for your Toronto Raptors, the embattled Brooklyn Nets. Sure, they got 2 wins in a row, but there's so much going on outside of the court, including in front of Barclays Center for this Nets team. But let's talk about what happened in the middle. The man in the middle, of course, right now is Ben Simmons. Had his best game of the season so far. He's playing center. Jonsey, I'll start with you. Is this a sign of things to come? A big night with some big numbers for Ben Simmons, or has he kind of had a blip on the radar?
Well, I don't know, and that's the question, Akil. Has the light gone on? And they're talking about all the time that Ben Simmons needs after not playing a year, adjusting to a new system, a new position. I mean, he's a guy that can play positionless on the offense, with the exception of knocking down jump shots consistently, but he handles the ball, he gets people going. I mean, playing close to the basket is great for him in that kind of an offense, slashing, because those are the shots he takes close to the basket. He's not...
Sometimes he doesn't even take those.
He's not hoisting up 15, 18-footers, and he's very good at drawing defenders. And people, it's human nature. He gets the ball down low, his size, a double team comes. It's almost automatic. It's kind of like a guy drives into the lane, people help, and they pitch it out for a 3. So I think that's good for Ben. I think that even before he was fired, Steve Nash had this idea, and Jacques Vaughn is kind of seeing it through to fruition. But we're going to have to watch this for a little while longer to see if the light has actually come on for Ben Simmons. But they got to be happy after the last couple of games.
Sure, be buying or selling Ben at the 5?
I am. I think it really alleviates a lot of issues for him. Ben Simmons is a very elite passer.
Yep.
And when Ben Simmons has shooters around, Joe Harris, we're talking about Seth Curry, guys who can really spread the floor, Kyrie, Kevin. All of a sudden now Ben Simmons as your 5 and a playmaker really has all the room he wants to operate off the dribble and get to the basket. So he's playing with confidence. And listen, the guy missed a lot of time with injury. He has a coaching change. He's still trying to get his rhythm, and to see him play the way he did in the last game really gives you an idea of how good he can be with that type of format and those type of shooters around him. So I think this is not a blip. I don't expect him to have 18 every night, but I expect him to continue upward trending in terms of being a productive, effective, kind of pressure player when he has the ball in his hands to make plays. So this is a good sign for Brooklyn based on everything that's going on in that organization.
Now, someone with the exact opposite problem, of course, is Kyrie Irving. No issues with his game on the court. It's the off-the-court stuff that matters for him right now. He's back, and he says he wants to keep the focus on basketball, but can he, knowing how big the controversy was, because he wants to avoid talking about the issue, but is that going to detract from what this Nets team wants to do right now?
Well, I think he's got to focus on that, and there will continually be questions about that. People will be bringing it up and asking. And
it's New York City.
All he has to say is, listen, we've gone through it. I've addressed it. These are my feelings. We're done with that, and focus on basketball. I mean, public relations experts will tell you, you want something to go away, stop talking about it.
Yeah.
And if you're Kyrie Irving, it's done. It's been dealt with. All the conditions have met, the fines, the suspensions, all of that. Folks, I'm focusing on basketball now. That's what I'd like to talk about. That other stuff is in the past. Not that he's not going to get those questions, but that's the way to address it. I've already addressed that. I've already spoken about that. Let's move forward. Let's focus on basketball. That's what I'm here for. And focus on your basketball goals in terms of winning in this organization.
Do the numbers dip, or does he handle this?
It's a lot on Kyrie. I mean, we're seeing it in terms of the outside pressure that's on him. And to your question, do I know if people will allow him to move on?
That's the big one.
That's the problem here. Kyrie has, as Jonsey said, addressed everything that was asked of him to do, and some of it we could argue was over the top.
Yep.
But he did it. And now he's at a point where he's not being allowed to move on. And it's one of those things where when you make a mistake or people see it as a mistake, sometimes they want to hold you to that for as long as they can and try to break you down. And it's tough for Kyrie. Yes, he can say, that's not what I'm here to discuss, but I do think that people are on a mission to definitely continue that narrative and try to continue to dig into that. He's going to have to step away from that at some point, but it's going to be difficult, I feel.
Well, the man will be on the court Wednesday night to take on the Toronto Raptors, and it's a 7:30 tip-off. You can catch that game on TSN. The radio call will be on the Sportsnet radio family. And that does it for us here from outside Scotiabank Arena, the scene of the crime Wednesday night. Do tune in. My name is Akil. Shouts out to our producer, Jake LaRue, who's sick at home. Get better, buddy. On behalf of Sherm Hamilton, Paul Jones, shout out to Nikhil, Sarah, and Armando. We'll see you next time.